Sure. Good evening, everyone. We'll call to order the February 1st, 2023 Select Board meeting to order. Happy February. We have a couple changes to the agenda. One of them is the short-term rental group, work group, under Citizens Department Committee request. We're going to move that to just after announcements. So before we go to follow-up comments from prior Select Board meetings, we're going to go to the short-term rental group. Our facilitator needs to get going. And then there's some changes to the pending contracts. Erica, are you going to just review those?
Sure. On the pending contracts, there is a professional service agreement with Horticultural Services by J. Michael. The date for the term is incorrect. It should be February 1st, 2023 through January 31st, 2026. And then the next item down, the 1.1 million contract with CDM Smith, that is going to be taken off for tonight. You'll see that in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, so we'll do that in the motion. Take that off. Okay, I can do announcements. The Select Board meeting is being audio and video recorded. The second one, introduction to the new Nantucket Regional Transit Authority Administrator. I'd like to welcome Gary Roberts. Hi, Gary. Would you like to come up and just introduce yourself, say hello? You can go up to the mic. That way the camera can get you so everybody can, now they can stop you and stop and shop and give them, all their ideas to you.
Yes. Well, I'm glad to be here. I have a lot of work ahead of me and I'm excited to get started. And it's a slow time right now to start. And I think hopefully by the summer, we'll be up to speed and make some changes and improve the system. And I'm excited to be here. And I thank you for having me come in.
Thank you, Gary. We're happy to have you.
Could you just say what you did before you came to me? Sorry.
Can you just tell the public a little bit of where you were before you came here?
Yeah, I came, started out at Greater Attleboro Taunton Regional Transit Authority. And I started out cleaning buses and became a mechanic. And I'd been there, well, I was there for 35 years. And I made the decision to come here and hopefully bring some of my expertise that I have and make some changes and get things flowing.
Thank you, Gary. Excited to have you.
Yeah.
All right,
Thanks for
thank
coming
you.
tonight. Review of applications for appointments for Council on Aging. Erica, can you do that?
Sure. So we currently have 3 vacancies on the Council of Aging. And we have 2 applicants, Erin Lynch and Abigail Camp. And the board will be allowing the applicants to introduce themselves at next week's meeting, and then you will be doing appointments.
Thank you, Erica. There's a Finance Committee public hearing regarding the 2023 Annual Town Meeting warrant articles to be held Monday, February 6th, 2023 at 4 p.m. in the Public Safety Facility here in the Community Room at 4 Fairgrounds Road or by remote participation via Zoom. Select Board announcements and comments. Anybody have anything? Brooke?
I'd just like to announce that I'm resigning from the Board of Health, and it's just one committee. I had taken it on when Melissa resigned, and it just feels like one too many. And I asked Malcolm if he would be willing, and he said he would. So I'm hoping this board will appoint Malcolm in my place.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Thank you. It's going home.
Do we have to put that on the agenda to do it, or can we just do it tonight?
don't
We
even know if-
usually do those. as
I don't even know if
agenda
we need to do it.
items.
I just think if you decide.
Okay.
So I'll make that change administratively.
If Malcolm needs a motion, then we can, to force him in.
That's quite all right.
All right. Thank you, Malcolm. And thank you, Brooke. I had one kind of comment for in preparation of the Surfside Crossing, everything that happened this weekend. We weren't able to put it on the agenda item for tonight. So I think we're probably going to hear a lot from in the public comment section, but I was going to ask if Libby could just give us a little bit of an update, and we're going to have it on the agenda next week. And just to give a little bit of update, Libby, are you there?
Yep. Yeah.
Thank
I'm not sure exactly what sort of update is necessary, but as we know, over the weekend, there was some work that began to clear the site. And evidently there were some concerns as to whether or not the developer had a permit to undertake that work. And the developer, as I understand it, does have a permit to do very specific types of clearing work. And that is what had happened. So that's kind of the update. I think earlier today at the agenda meeting, we discussed the potential of having an agenda item next week. If there are questions about this, we could get town council on to help answer those.
Thank you, Libby. We looked into trying
Mr.
to,
Chair, just on that issue, I think the question is what happened with the communication internally? Because there was notification to various town departments about this, and it kind of got lost somewhere. So that's what I'd really like to know.
Yeah, we can address that next week. I'm not sure that there was any requirements for any notification beyond what was given to the town by the state. This is not a town permit. But we can address that next week.
Right. Yeah, real quick. Yeah, my sense, Libby, is we had a meeting post that. We were not informed that I know of that and it was a 21-day appeal that could have happened. The land council or someone could have appealed it potentially. And by no one knowing, I don't think that, in my understanding, maybe I'm wrong, but my understanding is maybe town council wasn't aware as well. So if any of that, we want to find out if any of those things are true. And if they are true, how can we ensure it doesn't happen again? This could be a pretty big mistake. And I think we want to make sure, that the right hand knows what the left hand is doing. So I look forward to it. Thank you.
all right, so we have an update on that. Our agenda item for next week. I just wanted to try to talk about it as much as we could without deliberating, discussing, because it wasn't on an agenda item. In public comment, we can't really speak to it, but we will definitely be listening. And one more comment. This is a little on a national political stage, what's happening with New College down in Florida. And I just heard some comments at a board meeting that DEI work, diversity, equity, inclusion, is dividing people. And it just gave me the shivers that someone even said that. And I just made me think I wanted to talk about it tonight, that it's the opposite here. And as long as I'm in here, we're going to continue on. And Kamal McCarthy's doing such a great job, and everybody, all the department heads and everyone in the town who is going through this, I would say strategic planning, these focus groups, there's a big commitment here. And so I just felt maybe you don't know what's going on and don't even look into it because it's very, political. And, but it just gave me shivers. And I wanted to say tonight that we do not feel that way here, and we're all in, and we think it is the opposite. It brings people together, and we have a long way to go, but it has started, and I think we're doing well as of right now. Any other comments? Okay, there's no follow-up comments from prior select board meetings. Is there any public comment tonight that is not on the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Andy Lowell, members of the board. I see later on in your agenda, there's a review of draft surface water and groundwater protection regulations. Will any comment be allowed at that time, or shall I comment at this time?
On what subject matter? I'm sorry, Andy.
The review of the draft surface water and groundwater protection regulations.
You can, yeah, that's on the agenda on town manager's report.
Will I be able to speak at that time?
yes,
or,
yes.
or should I
Yeah.
speak now?
No, I would speak then. Yeah, we take
Thank
questions.
you.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I said that we were going to go to short-term rental group first, but we're already in public comment. So let's just go ahead. Megan Perry has her hand up.
Thank you very much, Jason. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to read something that I've received and then kind of do some follow-up on it. This is an email I received from Jesse Lettick. He's the Chief of Regulatory Review at the Massachusetts Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. Also, Natural Heritage might be more familiar to many of you. It says, "Hi, Megan. Thanks for your call this morning. I understand that you called Emily Holt, as well. We work closely together, and I am CCing her as well. When the Conservation and Management Permit, CMP, for the project was issued, a hard copy was sent via mail to the permit holder for the subsequent signature and recording. At the same time, we emailed an electronic copy of the CMP to the following parties. 2, Jamie at Cottage Castle, Inc., Brian Madden at LEC Environmental, Concom at nantucket.mass.gov, Jay Carlson at nantucket.mass.gov, plus at nantucket-mass.gov, E. Mooney at nantucket-mass.gov, L. Snell at nantucket.mass.gov, Alexander Skrusky, who's at the state. We're working on the rest of your, it's a further email. And then he sent me what that email was that was sent to all of those people. And it says, please find attached the conservation and management permit. I will mail the original to the permit holder at the address on page 1 for signature and recording unless directed otherwise. Please sign and return a scanned copy of the acknowledgement page within 5 business days. The subject of this is Surfside Crossing, 3, 5, 7, and 9 South Shore Road. This was sent to everybody that I've just listed on Wednesday, August 31st, 2022 at 2:12 p.m. I'm not sure if anybody on the board was able to get a chance to read the conservation permit that was issued on August 31st, 2022. If you haven't, on page 7, it lists that there are 21 days from date of issuance for any person aggrieved by this decision to appeal it. It's 21 days from August 31st, 2022. I'm not sure how many people were aware of that, but it sure is a bummer that nobody appealed it or was given the opportunity. And anybody, could be me, could be the town, could be land council, could be Bob Smith, but if we're not made aware of it, how can we appeal it? The distribution list on page 10 said it went to the Nantucket Board of Selectmen, Nantucket Concom, and Nantucket Planning Board. So I'm curious as to why these dates were missed and nothing was brought up, especially when the town is currently in a litigation on this matter. Doesn't make sense to me. Was it missed because staff is overburdened? I don't know, but it went to departments and it went to the staff in the department, and somehow nobody was notified about this. And I feel like this, if staff had a duty to be certain that the appropriate people were aware of this, by not doing so is inappropriate. By potentially not notifying town council, by not making this public, it's inappropriate. We need to do better. And I feel like this is probably not the first time the emails were lost in the shuffle. I believe the fire chief applications or appointments or hiring was also lost in the shuffle. So I'm wondering why this keeps happening and if we could look into it. Additionally, I think this should be an agenda item on your executive session, and I'm curious why it's not on your executive session. This needs to be looked into, and you guys need to be able to discuss it with your counsel since you are in litigation regarding it, and it needs to be done as soon as possible. On November 30th, I listened to this select board and staff complain about the public records requests that I do. You didn't name me, but my public records requests were read off. Everybody was upset that I do them, and they were upset that I do them to the extent that I do and the details that I do. This is one of the reasons why I do them, because stuff like this gets lost when it got sent to 3 different departments in the town, yet nobody was notified. The public wasn't notified. We were deprived of our opportunity to appeal this, and we were deprived by 3 different departments. And I'm asking you, as the department, or the board that oversees the administrative department, please look into this. This is unacceptable and this can't keep happening.
Thank you, Megan. Can we go to John Kishner? He just come off? There he is.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey, John, are you talking about the short-term rental group?
It's yes, but very briefly.
Oh, no, you don't need to do that in public comment because we have it on the agenda. We're going to it next. If you can just wait a little bit.
Sure.
Okay, thanks, John. We'll bring you right back on. I'm in a little bit of a doozy here because our Stacy Smith, facilitator, short-term rental group, has to leave at 6. And I think public comment's going to go to 6. If it's okay, if everybody could keep their hands up on public comment. Emily, I'm sorry. I think you're allowed to talk. We're going to go over to Stacy at least for 10, 15 minutes. And then maybe Brooke a little bit, and then we'll go back to public comment. My apologies to everyone who's got their hand up. Hi, Stacy.
Hi there. Sorry to have these time constraints. I had a standing meeting at 6 that I can't get out of.
That's okay. I was supposed to go to this agenda item before I started public comments. So that's my fault, my mistake.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you accommodating my schedule. And I'm happy to be here to update you all on what we are up to in the short-term rental working group. We had a meeting last night. It's the first meeting we've had in the year. Our previous meeting had been postponed or canceled because we didn't quite have the information ready to really move forward. The focus of our meeting last night, we talked about 3 different things. We reviewed the public input summary from the public meeting that we held in December, which we had 31 pages of notes that we synthesized into a summary of 6 pages that we shared with the group and the packet. We then had a conversation about our data gathering plan that Brooke could answer any additional questions on, but really, making sure that the group was aware of the actions that the select board is taking to procure a data specialist who can integrate work really for the group and integrate the data being collected by NARAB and Granicus and whatever other sources are needed. And then lastly, we talked about our schedule and our work plan. Since that meeting, I did a little bit of revisions to the schedule and work plan that I can just share with you all right now, just to give you a sense. But the group felt strongly that we needed to meet. My original plan was to hold off on meeting again until mid-March, until we heard from the data specialist. The group felt strongly that it was important to meet sooner than that. Some people wanted to meet more often even than this, but because of the town vacation at the end of February, when our other February meeting would normally take place, this is sort of what we landed on. And it really is to spend our next meeting first to bring people together in a subgroup to make sure that they can weigh in on the draft scope of work for the data analyst that the town is going to procure, as well as try to identify some communities that people might want to hear from who are further along on this STR regulation journey, and be able to just hear from them, experts who work for those communities, about what they see, what's working and not working, what they considered, what they're finding, et cetera. And then we would, at our next meeting 2 weeks from now, start to dive a little deeper into the policy levers that the group had identified back in our in-person meeting in December. We would then also confirm our data and work plan schedules and discuss a framework for how we are going to evaluate the policy levers and the proposals that the group is going to be trying to move forward as we get the data. So then we would meet again in mid-March to meet the data analyst, make sure that the person really understands what it is the group wants. And hopefully by then the data analyst will have gotten a chance to speak with the NARAB expert and with Granicus and be able to just give some orientation to the group, and the group get some, talk with that expert a bit about their needs. And then we could also have a panel presentation of case studies from other communities who are dealing with STRs and are further ahead. We would then, I've scheduled 2 additional meetings to really focus on the data that the analyst is going to be developing and sharing, plus other topics that we will determine. Maybe the group identified a number of additional things they think we could be working on. And then we would try to have another meeting where we discuss takeaways. And then we wanted to have a full plan for a full day in-person meeting to develop and evaluate proposals. We found that when we did a partial day in-person meeting in December, we made so much progress. And so we're going to try and do that again. We are holding that's the space you all are in for the 4th or the 19th, and it's going to sort of depend. I think the group prefers the 4th, but it's really going to depend on when we can get information from our data analyst and how that procurement timeline works. And then in between there, we would have a meeting either hopefully after this meeting to take that one step further on making sure we can try to seek some agreement on what are the draft proposals people want to bring forward. At that point, which would be about the end of May, we would start working with Judy Barrett and with the town council to try and start putting text around these as bylaws. And meanwhile, we would want to hold a public input session. We have in-person in question. We didn't get a chance to really talk about that at our meeting last night, whether we would try to do that in person or hybrid or have 2 versions, one in person and one online. But basically, people thought that the public input session that we organized in December was really useful. The public seemed to really appreciate it. And the committee, the work group really wants to get more input from the public as they progress in their ideas. And we might want to think about other ways to get input as well, whether it's having some kind of poll or survey or something like that as well, to really just weigh in on the proposals that the group is considering. And then we would have potentially up to 3 more meetings to review and finalize the bylaw language that the group would hopefully be able to then bring forward through the process to get to town meeting. So I will stop there as I now have about 7 more minutes if you want to ask any questions.
Thank you, Stacy. Any questions, comments from board members?
I was just wondering, you talk about a data analyst, the qualifications of that person. What type of data analyst are you looking for?
So I think Brooke can say a little more about that.
I can speak to that. I'm working with some members of the work group who have data experience, as well as procurement, to write a scope of work and a description of qualifications. So Malcolm, if you'd like to help with that, because I know you have some expertise there.
I would like to help with that.
That would be great. So I will comment that this was a bit of a puzzle to put together in terms of timing, because there were components of this that were out of control of us and the short-term rental work group. That includes NARAB formulating their scope of work and hiring a contractor and finding and reaching a proposed deliverable date for the bulk of the data that they will be producing, which is out of local realtor offices. So we were they were working through their process and setting their timeline. And then we also had on the other end, what date could we have special town meeting and what would be the sort of the drop dead date for the work group to complete their work and to make sure there was room for all of this. And I think we have a very good timeline now, and it's on our agenda later to look at the November 7th date for special town meeting. And I just want to point out to the community that there are a myriad of groups that have to come together for a town meeting date: the schools, the moderator, town clerk, the e-voting vendor, and there's a few others, NCTV and Nivissimo, who does the tech. So all of those parties had to agree on a date. So that took a little bit of time. So I'm delighted with the timeline we have. And I think this group, looking at the timeline Stacy's put together, will really have opportunity for really good deliberations and public input through the process.
Well, I certainly like to help, because you're going to have essentially what we kind of term a meta-analysis of lots of different databases, and putting them together is always a challenge. And you always have to be very careful that you don't end up with these are the conclusions about which I base my data, which often happens, especially with such emotion on both sides.
Agreed.
Thank you. Can we go to John Kitchener? Can you pull him up if he doesn't have his hand? Okay.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. So John Kitchener, I'm an at-large member of the short-term rental work group. My comment is, though, tonight is made as an individual and not on behalf of any other members of the work group. And all I wanted to do, everyone, was this. We need the additional meeting in February. We need the sub-work group meeting that's at the top of Stacy's page, and perhaps more of those over the next few weeks and months. And I just want to support Stacy in saying that we need the funding to do this. You know, a lot of the things we need to work on are not data conversations. You know, they are other kind of work that we can do so that when we do get the data, we're ready. And if we don't get the February meeting and any other of these small subgroup meetings, if we don't get that, we will not move this thing forward at the pace that's going to be necessary to meet the dates, in my opinion, for the special work group. So, you know, our work group is working well. It's critically important to the island. And I just urge you to approve whatever funding Stacy has put forward prior to tonight and now with these extra meetings. But we cannot be hampered by not being able to meet because there is no money to pay for a facilitator. So please support what she has to say. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any other comments?
I'm wondering if a couple of the people that are.
That's
have
what I
their
was
hand raised,
thinking.
Like Kathy Baird.
If Kathy Baird maybe could speak now.
Wasn't
Stacey,
sure about the
you just
others.
go when you have to go.
Yeah, I will drop off in 2 minutes, but I'll stay here until then.
Okay, great. Kathy?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just speaking on my behalf, just like John did. I'd like to support what he said. I think I agree with everything he said. I'd also like to offer, I think that there are members of this short-term rental group who would, you know, be willing to offer assistance to Stacy and her team in doing whatever, maybe administrative tasks or other things that they need to do. If, you know, they can dump something on us, we can do it and hand it back to them and save them some time, because we don't cost the town any money. So that's a good thing. And I think that the web portal, I just have a question about, you know, the web portal. It's not part of the short-term rental work group, but it is in a way, in that we were hoping to have some numbers or some data collection through the year. And we've heard that, you know, I've heard rumors that the portal isn't going to be up for this year, and that's sort of a disappointment. So if anybody at some point could share some information with the public on what is going on there, that would be really, really helpful. And I also just want to say thank you so much to Brooke for all she's doing. She's, you know, volunteered to do way beyond what she, you know, was signed up to do as part of the select board, and it is a lot of work to put together the special town meeting, and appreciate all of the town departments that are getting together to work on that and give us the time we need to do so. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Eric, anyone else that you think might be? I think we'll just go to public comment, and then if they, we'll just go down the line that way. We'll go to Emily Molden. Now we're back to public comment. Thanks everybody for waiting, as we had a little switcheroo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Emily Molden for the Nantucket Land Council. I was just generally going to echo the concerns of Megan Perry previously, and thank you for putting an agenda item in for next week for the Surfside Crossing clearing that took place this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. We go to Rick Atherton.
Thank you, Jason. I clicked the unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Just back to the comments by Megan Perry to the board tonight. My observation is that that's a extremely significant and serious issue. And I would like to recommend to the board, and I say this with someone who spent 9 years as a member of the select board. I recommend you ask and appoint a special counsel to review the circumstances raised by the lack of information transfer about the number of days the appeal was available, as outlined in Megan Perry's comments. I don't think the select board should rely solely on themselves or town administration or even KP Law to be willing to undertake the necessary investigation as to why that happened. So that's my recommendation. I hope you'll take it seriously. I mean it in good faith. This is a community issue that has wide significance. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Rick. We go to Bruce Perry.
Yes, good evening. I'd like to echo the previous comments with Rick Atherton. And I guess the question I have is, this permit was emailed to the general mailboxes and the department heads mailboxes, and for 4 different commissions, and nobody brought it to the commissions above them. The people I talked to, the Concom didn't know about it, the selectmen, and a planning board member. So one of the things I want to discuss for next week's agenda item is, why not? How come none of the department heads or their staff felt it was necessary to notify their boards that this permit had come through? The selectman itself is in litigation with this project, and yet they weren't informed. And I'm curious as to whether or not even town council was informed. So for next week, I hope you'll address this question. And yep, and that's what I'd start with that. And I think this was an egregious mistake, as Matt said earlier, and it can't happen again. There's no reason it should have happened, and I'd like to have some answers to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Go to Sarah Ellis.
Yes, thank you, Jason. I just wanted to make a comment. It reflects, I mean, it's regarding that issue, which was just spoken about, beginning with Megan Perry, and also about the STR work group. Just as somebody, you know, I'm not involved with the group. It seems too bad that there isn't a more frequent meeting schedule that's been made available. My understanding, and perhaps this is incorrect, is that it's not terribly likely that we're going to have a November 7th meeting. And I don't, that's no one's fault, and it is a lot of logistics, but why there isn't more public outreach and discussion, and even social media discussion, other avenues to get public input, so that when you are looking with the data, that you have a sense of what people are saying and where they're looking, and that doesn't have to come in a secondary fashion. I don't think these things are necessarily linear. And it just, regarding the budget, that's a little frightening that this town of all places can't come up with a budget to provide an STR work group with a place to meet. And I also think that in regards to the appeal that was never given notice to the correct people, you know, the sort of opaque nature of things that goes on in this town in regards to certain aspects of decision making it's not helpful. I mean, it may have worked 20 years ago, but it really isn't reflecting well on Nantucket Island. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Can we go to Megan?
Thank you again, Jason. I'm sorry I wasn't quite finished earlier, and I know you had to jump off for short-term rental. I just wanted to continue. One of the things in the granted permit that might have been appealed is the open space. According to this permit, they have to put aside 2.08 acres for open space. And what they're doing is putting roughly 20 feet on the front of the property by South Shore Road and then 10 feet on all the other sides. The rest will be cut down. They're going to mitigate that through an in lieu fund. So they'll use $641,000, $641,796 to find roughly 11.5 acres that's undisturbed to mitigate for this. They're not going to find that on Nantucket. That fund's going to go off island. So those are some of the things that could have been appealed by anybody had we known about this. I'm also concerned that the Plus department received this, and the Plus department staff member for the ZBA is one of the people that received it. The Plus department's staff member as zoning enforcement officer also received it, and the Plus deputy planner received it. And it's concerning to me that nobody was notified about that. So while it did go to 3 different departments, there's also multiple boards that person should have informed. So that's fairly concerning to me. I don't know if people were informed, but it doesn't sound like people were informed about it. And when we are watching the select board last week approve a budget of $1.6 million for administrative budget, that's very concerning that somehow this was missed and we have a budget of that, which is larger than the fire department's budget. So anyway, thank you very much for taking all of my comments. And I really look forward to hearing some of the responses. And I understand you can't get back to me on everything, but I do appreciate you taking the time and listening to the community talk about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Did I see another hand go up there for a second? Charity, did you mean to take your hand down? You can bring her on.
Okay. Oh, shoot. She put her hand down and then I invited somebody else. Sorry. Give me 1 second.
Hey, Charity, did you want to speak?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
This is a shocking, to put it mildly, development. When you have the resources that we do have in this town, this suggests to me an aura of ineptitude that should not exist in a community like Nantucket. If a legal document is sent to all of these people, all of these representatives, all of these staff people, and it is not forwarded immediately to council for consideration, there's something rotten in the state of Denmark. Thank you.
Thank you, Charity. Is there any other public comment here tonight that's not on the agenda? Let's give that a second. Okay. There's no new business that I know of. Get a motion for approval of minutes of January 25th and approval of treasury warrants of February 1st. And we'll do pending contracts here in a second.
I wasn't here for the 25th, so I'm staying on that.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And then one abstaining, Matt. Okay. And then pending contracts, any questions or is there a motion?
Move approval.
Brooke?
With the changes we discussed earlier?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 That passes 5-0. That's so fast without roll call.
Is Tom's mic okay? Do we need to switch one out?
I think it's okay. I think I wasn't close enough.
Okay, consent items are gift acceptances, Affordable Housing Trust, Fire Department, Planning and Land Use Services. Let me go to my gift acceptance reader to my left. Thank you, Brooke.
I think it's me to your left. Okay, so the gift acceptances are as follow: to the Affordable Housing Trust, a gift of $1,000 from the Georgia Josie Boyd Family Foundation. And that's in memory of Emily Stover, who was an early adopter of the work of affordable housing and was instrumental in the creation of Housing Nantucket. So it's in her memory. To the fire department, a gift of $1,000 from the Sternlick Foundation for training initiatives. And to Planning and Youth Services Department, a gift of $2,000 from Richard Gillis for pedestrian and bike path improvements in connection with the Birdsong Lane subdivision approval. And so I would move that we accept all these gifts for their designated purposes with thanks to go to the donors.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 That passes unanimously. Thank you. We've already done the citizen department request for short-term rental group. Over to town manager's report. I think unless you wanted to jump in, Libby, we were going to go to Roberto Santamaria to start off, or Jeff. I'm not sure who's going to start.
I think Roberto could start and Jeff could add anything.
Okay.
All right, I guess I'm starting. Sorry, I just ate something. So this is what we're putting in front of you is just the next draft of the water illicit discharge regulations that we had originally drafted that were before you back in July. If you remember, we had originally scheduled a public hearing, but there were some revisions that were requested, and then now those and then we never went back to the public hearing. So we did those revisions, which you'll see, which I believe is in the packet, and then we're just bringing it back to you for this time for comment, and then to schedule a new public hearing. In a nutshell.
Thank you, Roberto. Jeff, anything to add?
I 100% agree with Roberto.
Okay.
Good team.
We have some comments here tonight. Andy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Andy Lowell, and I'll be speaking on behalf of the Harbor Shellfish Advisory Board. Stormwater runoff has been an agenda item for discussion for at least 2 years now at SHAB. We're preparing a recommendation, and we hope it can be considered for implementing within this plan. As infill development continues, it appears obvious that surface water issues have accelerated island-wide. Our concerns are specific with what is being discharged untreated into the harbor. Many people may not be aware of the roughly 51 outfall pipes that drain into our harbor. Storm drains from as far back as Sparks Ave, Atlantic Ave, Pleasant Street, Liberty Street, Lily Street, Woodbury Lane, portions of the cliff, and everything from those areas down to the harbor all drain into the harbor untreated. Included in this stormwater is just about anything you can imagine: fertilizers, soaps, solvents, weed killers, automobile fluids, bird poop, dog, pet waste, bubblegum, cigarette butts, and a large contributor as of late is mulch, which contains nitrogen and is accumulating heavily as a silt that's ultimately smothering areas of the harbor bottom. it is our hope at SHAB that the select board will understand and acknowledge this has been a contributing negative effect on the harbor for years and is only getting worse. So first of all, I'd like to know, is there time? Our next meeting is next Tuesday. If we're able to draft up a recommendation, can it be considered and possibly your draft be revised to possibly include some action taken? What we feel needs to be done is, or would be helpful to create a map, which I think the map actually already exists, of these areas that drain into the harbor. Somehow get this map into the hands of everybody who lives in these districts where their stormwater that comes from their rooftops. A lot of these new infill houses are now being built without any gutters, downspouts, dry wells. All of this runoff is ending up in the streets, down the storm drains, and into our harbors. And we feel that if this map were put into some people's hands, it would be a good public educational outreach. If the town is not prepared to be able to make that investment, maybe we could reach out to some private investment to get these maps created. Maybe they can be done in the form of emails as well. And we're simply hoping that some action can be taken that can help alleviate some of these problems that have increased over the years. Thank you.
Andy, we welcome the recommendation. So tonight we're going to authorize us to move forward with a public hearing. So it'll be advertised and then there'll be a public hearing on all this as well. So that'll be helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a thought on that. Andy, you might want to, if they haven't already, you may want to have that mapped on GIS and then it's permanent. You know, so if it isn't done already, and if it is, then all we're going to do is print the page, you know? So, and I think they are working it. So I think Dave has been working on sort of updating that and knowing where it all is. I know they've been doing something like that.
Jeff Carlson.
Yes, to comment on some of Mr. Lowell's comments, I know what's in front of you guys today is kind of step one for us, where we're looking at some of the, the known illicit discharges, things like pool discharges, some of the dewatering that gets permitted and formalizing that program. But running in the background too is kind of part two, where, we've been working with David Gray, now that he's, kind of taken up the stormwater mantle here, to work towards more comprehensive stormwater regulations. And those regulations are also part of the water quality plan that we developed as part of the select board strategic plan. So we 100% agree with Mr. Lowell. It's something that needs to get done and worked on. But in the meantime, the ones that are in front of us today are, I hate this phrase a little bit, it's a little bit of a stopgap to deal with some of the ongoing issues as the larger stormwater question gets properly addressed. And I know David is also working on cammering and cleaning some of these stormwater areas to kind of do an assessment. And I think the result of that assessment will probably produce something similar to what Mr. Lowell has talked about, stormwater locations and conditions. And hopefully we'll have a good comprehensive stormwater program here in the near future.
Thank you, Jeff. Anything else from the board?
I have a question. I think this is a great step forward, but my concern always is enforcement. We've had issues with enforcing our fertilizer regulations. And if we enforce these, we have to give these two departments the resources to actually enforce them. Otherwise, we're just making ourselves feel good by passing something like this.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Libby.
I just want to add to something that Jeff said. Jeff is coming to your meeting next week to review the water quality plan that is outlined in the board strategic plan. So some of this might be covered there. And with respect to enforcement, I think the fertilizer issue is a little different enforcement wise, but Jeff and Roberto have indicated that they have sufficient resources to enforce these particular regulations that are before you, or will be when we have a public hearing.
I just, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I just hope that's so, because we often hear, well, we'll look at the budget next year. This would be a great opportunity too for, summer help, people that already live here, because we always talk about the problem of hiring people as a place for them to stay. But I think it would be a great educational experience for some of our young people on this island if we made them enforcement officers for this and the fertilizer regulations. I'm not sure it's that different.
Thank you, Malcolm. Brooke, do you have a comment?
I just had one comment about the fee for temporary discharge permits seems really low, and I don't know whether that's limited. But one of the issues we have is that some of these properties get temporary discharge permits and they end up silting in the catch basins and where the construction projects are going on. And I would love to see a larger permit that could be returned if the catch basin didn't need cleaning, or a requirement before a CO was issued for catch basin cleaning post-construction. Because I know in my neighborhood, there was one particular construction site that has led to puddling that was not nearly as bad before. And the sand just filled up the catch basins in the neighborhood. And it seems as though there's no consequence to that. So having that part of it would be important.
Anything else from board, Matt?
Yeah, just well, there's $300 for each offense, which is different than the discharge permit. But if someone's offense is 300, and I thought, well, that isn't enough. That was 5A. I thought that isn't enough because, if I want to just discharge it, I'll pay the $300. But there's a civil penalty, which was quite a bit higher, which was in 5B. What was that? 3,000 or 5,000? So there was a civil penalty that was in 5B. So I assume, I guess this is a question, I guess, is that if someone does something just sort of wanton disregard for pouring it out? Is that correct? It's 5,000. What is the civil, when would a civil penalty be
Administrated?
Happen, yeah.
Yeah. Roberto or Jeff?
So Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. The little one, the little one, the $300 one, that one's more for if, they're doing a temporary construction, like for example, they have to dewater while they pour a basement, and they filed late, or they did, it's a minor infraction. The bigger civil penalty is for, like you said, the big stuff, like what we saw out in when the pool got drained into the harbor, for example.
All right, good. That makes sense. And then the other question I had was best management practices from the National Swimming Pool Foundation. Did you guys, look at that? And does that make sense? And is there a difference between how you handle a chlorine pool and a saltwater pool in that section?
Yes. So it's I thought we changed the name of it. It's the National Spa Foundation and the Swimming Pool Foundation has merged. So now it's called like the Pool and Spa Foundation of America. So I got to change the name to that. Sorry about that. But yes, you do handle the two separately in a different way. But ultimately what it is to make sure that all the chlorine and all the harmful chemicals are out in the same way. The end product is the same. You handle the two differently. And this is what we're trying to get ahead of.
Will saltwater pools be able to be discharged into the ocean?
No, not into the ocean. Not at all.
All right. Gotcha. Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
The other question I have is just around the needing to identify and map all existing stormwater connections. Is that realistic in a year timeframe, first of all? And would we have resources for people? I'm sure there's hundreds, if not thousands, of stormwater connections that no one knows they exist, or that they predate anything, and just how that would be accomplished.
I think that's a question for, Roberto, you guys could talk about it, but I think David Gray would give a a pretty good answer. And we have the CMOM, we have the capabilities to do it. It's the capacity to map them all. And I think either inadvertently or advertently, it's already kind of started happening while he's been using the CMOM for other things, like, for sewer, that he's kind of, seen storm drains and different things connected into sewer lines. So Roberto, am I on the right, or Jeff?
Yeah. And again, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, to those in the more know than I, but I believe David has been already mapping as they find and as they move along with the CMOM program in order to prevent any of the II, the infiltration, and I forgot what the second I stood for.
Inflow.
So,
Inflow, yeah.
Inflow and infiltration. Thank you. So he is already working on mapping a lot of this. And then the other ones that we get are ones that are already known. Like, for example, we get a complaint in downtown, I'll say in downtown every year, when some water gets dumped into the road. And then, so we'll be able to finally enforce against those properties that are already a known quantity. But yes, Dave, in long story short, David is working on that, to my knowledge.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jeff, I remember a long time ago when I was public outreach manager, I walked around with, I think it was Caitlin, somebody who worked at the NRD, and we put on each drain, I can't remember exactly what it says. Most of them are still there, that like, don't dump in this drain, it goes into the harbor. And that was a big education for me, knowing that, like what you're saying, Andy, that it's Lily Pond drains into the harbor, not just on Washington Street. So I think those type of things, plus mapping, and I'm even thinking of, the QR code on the future, please don't dump in here. So, and it goes to, and shows you where it all goes together. That's a little much, but just a dream.
Yeah, that was Lily Pond. There was wetlands ran all the way up the street. A lot of that is infill right past the Nantucket Hotel, right into Lily Pond. A lot of that was sort of a, marsh and infilled over time. Some of it even in my lifetime, down on near where the beachside is. That was all infilled back then, which is not that long ago. When they were mapping the sewer, they did a lot of smoke testing, and they'd run smoke in, and they'd find they would find illegal, stuff that was connected, and they removed it. And there was, millions of gallons of II that were, sort of discovered at that time. And some of it's probably gone back on slowly because people aren't aware, but hopefully, this will be a first step to doing that.
And I do know the land bank at one point had talked about a restoration project of the Lily Pond area to make it natural filter for stormwater before it heads out toward the harbor. So I'd be curious where that project stands.
There's one of those down by Sales over there. The issue with those, they're great. The issue though is every 5 or 10 years, you have to dig them out and take all the pollutants out and start again. And so you think like, oh, we'll just do this and it'll be all set. Well, there's upkeep, just like you should be cleaning your storm drains on a regular basis. You have to clean those natural filters, and you have to pull it out, and you have to handle that in a certain manner. So, which I'm not sure we've done yet. So yeah, so we've got a ways to go, but it's important that we do it. I think a lot of this, people go, why are we doing it now? What's the big deal? And I look at this, things that were okay when we had, 5,000 people, and 10,000, 7,000 cars are not okay when we have 70,000 people and 30,000 cars. And, and it's, things we have to change this if we want to keep the harbor, sort of clean and have a fishery there, et cetera. And everywhere else that, a lot of places have lost the fisheries. And so we're trying, we're really, it's so important. And it's just things that were okay. When I was a kid, it all just went in, the sewage went into the harbor, but there weren't that many of us. It didn't matter. Now it matters a lot. So, and we swim in it, no offense, but.
So thank you, everyone. Are we okay with going forward with the public hearing for this?
Yes.
Okay. Great.
Don's laughing. That explains a lot, right? Don?
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Roberto. Thank you, Andy, for your comments.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to select board reports and comments, review and vote to revise the language of Senate Bills number 3066, the Ames Avenue and the Alta Rock Road as requested by Senator Sear. I think we
So-
have, go ahead, Libby.
Just gonna say, Mr. Chair, so these are home rule petitions that have been approved by town meeting and have gone up to the general court to hopefully be adopted. And Senate Council or House Council, depending on where it is, reviews all home rule petitions from all, all municipalities. And from time to time, they have some technical changes that are recommended, and that is what these are. And typically they require a vote of the select board. They're not substantive. Our town council has reviewed them and found that they are acceptable and don't change the intended purpose of the home rule petition. So we would recommend your approval.
Thank you. Any questions or motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 That passes unanimously. Thank you, Libby. Review schedule of the fall 2023 special town meeting. We are
Okay.
looking to approve the date tonight, right?
It's no issue that it's election day because there's
That's
no,
actually why we
there's
wanted to
no
have it.
election.
Correct.
Just
Yeah,
And-
go ahead, Libby.
I just can say thank you. That is how that date came about, because the school will be closed that day. And so it seemed like it'd be a little easier for them if there's no school. There is going to be obviously quite a bit of setup and takedown, but that day works for them, and it works for all of the officials who are required for a special town meeting. And if you approve the date tonight, I would prepare a timeline for you in the next couple of weeks.
Any questions for Libby on this? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the date of, what is
So
it?
moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 So that's the Tuesday, November 7th date.
Yes.
Yeah.
That passes unanimously. Any committee reports or last comments?
I'm just gonna say that the transfer fee legislation, our representatives are trying to find a path forward to get that adopted. Both of them were here on Monday, and I had a chance to chat with Dylan and Julian. And it's a challenge, and they're trying hard. And I just want the public to be aware that we will probably be asking folks to participate at the State House to try to advocate for this at some point later in the spring, as some of these bills move through committee. So we'll try to keep you informed to the best of our ability.
Thank you, Brooke. Matt?
Right. Malcolm and I met with representatives as well. And there is one of the things that's likely on the transfer is that that'll require a certain percentage of the room tax or a certain percentage of CPC, is what they sort of think that what is going to get melded out of the committee is going to be requiring that. So that's something for us to keep in mind, sort of with our recommendations for town meeting and other issues is, we might, that's just something to think about. But it does look more positive according to them than it had. We discussed roads and sort of I think it's chapter 81 and how do you abandon them? And they were going to look into that, and we're going to check. I asked them about, they have they're trying to get high tide, low tide passage, and they said that they are, they're working on it. They were going to ask the House Council about once Acts of 91, it was, I think, chapter 176, Acts of 91, which is something I brought up here before. And they were going to look at that, and they were going to look at they're trying to figure out how to do it. We talked a little bit about the fertilizer ban and the vote we made, and they weren't sure. They were gonna, because I was saying, should we have two different fertilizer articles going up? Will that confuse things, et cetera? And they said they didn't quite have the answer for that. They think the state soon will be doing a PFAS ban. That's not something we're asking for, but that's, their indication is people are understanding the importance of that and the impact that's having statewide. And so the state is working on that. And then the other comment was coastal resiliency met, not this week, but the week before. One of the items that was on the agenda was Baxter Road. And what I found interesting, and this is the issue we've had all along, is it's so polarized. It was tough to get people to speak up about what might work and what in the coastal resiliency plan makes sense and what didn't, and et cetera. And there were some members who were like, well, let's get this study and that study, and we can look at it in 2 years, that kind of tone. And I was like, this is stuff we have to do now, guys. And how are we going to do that? So we're going to keep working on it. We're going to talk about it again, but I think that's going to be one of our difficulties is in these formats with something that's that polarized with such strong feelings. People are not really willing to speak up. They're afraid that one of their friends or someone they do business with or for whatever reason, someone's going to be mad at them or someone's going to be upset. And if we don't, I look at this, we have to do this, you guys have heard me a million times. We have to look at this holistically. We have to look at these neighborhoods and do something if we're going to do something, do it for the whole neighborhood, not piecemeal, not lot by lot. So I think that's, anyway, I just thought it was interesting that I thought crack was, it was our first go at it. So maybe, the loose lips will loosen up the next couple of times, but I think we need to have a conversation and be able to disagree without being disagreeable and to put our thoughts, on the record for things and not be, anyway.
Yep.
In response to that, Matt, I really appreciate that. I think that the design think workshop that was done, and then I think this short-term work group with a facilitator to build consensus is a model that we should be thinking about for public conversation and decision-making around things that are resource intensive, affect people very differently and that tend to be polarizing. And I've said this before, but I attended the short-term rental work group public session, and it was a conversation among people who I knew had strong opinions, and there was a lot of listening and a lot of honesty. And I think that is a forum that's not on the floor of town meeting arguing for or against something that's been proposed. It's about building consensus toward a mutually agreeable solution to difficult problems. And I think it's a model we should be doing more in our community as we get ahead of some of these thorny issues.
Man, no, I agree. That was one of the best things we did back in the comp plan days, which is ages ago now, early 2000s. But it was consensus building with the dots. And I had never seen it before when we did it. And, we've since done that ourselves a little bit. But I think, it is, sort of how if you're going to build consensus and build momentum in the community, there has to be more of that public outreach. There has to be more of that, public input. Otherwise, and understanding. I think there was some misconceptions. I was speaking to someone today about coastal resiliency, and I think there was some misconceptions that, that road will be built by June. And I'm like, the new road at Baxter Road is not done by June. So there's a, so if it was done by June, we might make a different, we may not have been even trying to do what we were trying to do. And so I think, somehow we have to find a better way to communicate, some of these big things, and I sent an email to Vince and Libby about that discussion today, just to say, when we have this again, we need to be clear. Here's what it's going to take at Baxter Road. Here's what here's what's going to take us. Here's how long it's going to take. Here's how much, approximately how much it's going to cost. Some of that is there, but it needs to almost be a cheat sheet so that people understand it's not, we can't just do this and everything's set, So anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Next week, we have obviously the Surfside Crossing as an agenda item. Offshore wind will be an agenda item for Mayflower, I think it's going to be here. We'll have our appointments for the Council on Aging, third quarter reports. And I think that's for now. There might be a couple other things going on the agenda. I'm trying to do a good job of every Wednesday talk about next week. So sometimes you don't see it till Saturday or Sunday morning or Monday morning, depending on how busy you are. Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously. Thanks, everyone.